So on to task 31 in the plant growing simulation exam scenario. Test the simulation by running the program and choosing to run the simulation for 678 years. Explain what happens below. How could the program be improved, or could the program be improved? So let's just run this one and let's enter stepping mode. Oh, no, sorry. Forgive me. Let's clear the screen. Let's do that again. Question 31. Let's enter a number, 6, 7, 8. And you should be able to see what this question is leading on to, because the prompt is enter a number between 0 and 5 or -1 for stepping mode. If I put in 6, 7, 8, at the moment what happens is it allows it and it will run the simulation 678 times, even though the maximum is supposedly meant to be 5. So that's what you need to describe here. And the next task is update the get how long to run subroutine to include data validation that confirms that the user's input is between -1 and 5 before returning back to the simulation subroutine. You should inform the user when invalid data is entered and also display a confirmation message once the data has been accepted. This is a very common exam question. You're given the kind of input data collection subroutine and you have to put your own data validation on it. This will always be worth like 5, 6 marks, 7 sometimes. So it's very important to know how to do this. And there's a slight mistake here because it should be enter a number between 1 and 5. 0 is not actually a valid input. So let's make it so it accepts 1 and 5, 1 and 5, or -1 before returning back. So we're changing get how long to run. And the whole idea is we want to repeat this input. Oh, it does allow 0. That doesn't seem to make sense to me because that wouldn't run anything. But if that's what's in the program, maybe the exam board is trying to make it a bit easier for you. But let's leave it as what they had. So you can enter 0, which would then display nothing, confusingly. So what should we do? Let's make a flag. It's always good to make a flag. Let's say years valid is false. And we want to say until years valid is true. So while years valid is false, and let's ask for the input, and then let's ask some questions. Is the data valid? So the first thing we need to consider is the data has to be bigger than or equal to -1, and the data has to be less than or equal to 5. And that would mean years valid is true. So let's test it and let's think, is this now a perfect solution? So how will this work? The flag is false. Wherever the flag is false, we ask for an input. We check if the input is correct. If the input is correct, then the flag inverts. So next time the loop will exit. Let's put an error message as well. So let's just say print invalid input, please re-enter. Let's test it and let's consider if this is a perfect solution. Again, let me just fix my tabs. So let's maybe use Genie to help us with this. Let's change the indent type to spaces and let's convert all of the tabs with spaces. That should stop that from happening. So let's test it by putting in some invalid data. So the example shown before was 6, 7, 8, and now you can see that the program rejects it. It should also reject anything that is too low. So it should only work when the input is valid, so between -1 and 5. However, you might now want to consider there are still some things that could cause an invalid input. So for example, if the user gets confused and thinks that they need to type in a text input, so something like stepping mode, then the program will crash because of the way that the int function is used directly on the input function. So let's just talk about how that could be avoided. So generally, we don't want int to be used straight away because we first need to check if the number entered is either -1 or is a digit. Then we can check if it is, we can convert it to an integer. And let's just now let's change this slightly. So continue will allow us to jump to the next iteration. And what this means is I won't need to have two separate else statements. So this is how you would do something that also validates that the number is a valid, something that can be converted into an integer before doing the next bit. What are some alternatives? So let's just run this to make sure it works. Not by pressing F5. What are some alternatives? So now if I put in a string, it knows that this is an invalid input. If I put in something too low, something too high, let's check the boundaries, then it works. It might make more sense to just provide a list of the valid options. It's perfectly valid. So we could say something like, if years in, all of the valid options are strings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because there are only 6 possibilities, maybe this is acceptable. It's perhaps not the cleanest solution. One way of doing it. And what we need to make sure is that we return the integer form of years down here. So there were 2 possible solutions to this very common data validation style task.